back at my bushcraft camp, and today we're going to be making a friction fire using a bow drill. I'm going to talk you through it, but to begin with, we're going to find a nice bit of tinder, which is going to be used for our tinder bundle. So here we've got cedar fibers. These are basically the fibers from the bark, the inner fibers from the bark from cedar trees. So you basically have lengths like this that you peel off the tree. This is the bark. You can see I've just been collecting some. This is all dead stuff. It's the seating area for my shelter, and every so often I'll just help myself to a little bit of bark. It makes the life a little bit easier. And the way you do it is you get your bark, you then split it in half, say like this, and then lift up one side of the bark. Once you've done that, you can easily get your finger under and then just peel it away. What I mean by peel it away is just peeling the outer layer away from the inner fibers. And remember, it's the inner fibers that you want. So once we've got these inner fibers, we'll just clean up the rest of the bark. If there's any bark left on it, we'll just take it off, just to make sure there's only fibers left over. So once you've done that, you peel off strands. Once you've peeled off loads of strands, you then bunch them all up, and you really give them a good shake around and make sure they rub against each other, and all those fibers will loosen up. And once they've loosened up, you can then add some more, some that isn't as finely loosened up, and then here we are. This is the beginning of our bird's nest for our fire lighting. So we're going to do a friction fire if all goes to plan, and if we get the ember, we're then going to transfer it to this, hold this up, blow this into a flame, put it down on the ground, have some pre-prepared sticks, some very fine bits of kindling, which we'll put on top of this very fast burning tinder bundle. And what will happen is those dry fine sticks, the finer and the drier they are, the easier our fire lighting will become. Whereas if we were to put big wet logs on this straight away, there's a very small chance those wet logs would catch light. So yeah, stick around, come along, follow the journey. So these are just 2 limpet shells that I use for friction fire. If I have access to limpet shells, then I'll always use them. Another good thing you can do with limpet shells is you can actually make candles. If you've ever got an animal such as a deer that you happen to be butchering and you end up with a bit of the fat or the tallow, what you can do is you can render that down, pour the tallow or the fat into the limpet shell. Then by getting a slither of something dry and fibrous, you could use, I like to use a bit of amadou. So if you can find a horse's hoof fungus, then if you take a slither of amadou, stick the amadou in the middle, 2 or 3 little pebbles, and what that'll do is the pebbles around the side will hold the stick or the wick of amadou upwards, and the amadou, when it's lit, it'll just soak up all the tallow and the fat, and it will act like a little tea light. They don't last for very long, but it's better than nothing. Great little idea for around the campsite. So for fire, we're going to be using this. Well, there isn't much life left in it. As you can see, I've used it quite a few times. And I just thought maybe I'll give it one more try and then probably burn it. Where am I going to do it? Well, I could do it there, but there's an awkward chip that's been taken out of it, and there's a bit of a knot, which could be an issue when it comes to drilling into it with the spindle. So I might just flip that round. So rather than do it there, I'll just flip it around, and I might just do it just here, right in the middle there. So there we are, we've just created a little indent with the tip of the axe, and now I'm going to put that on there, drill into it slightly, just for it to start to burn and begin to char and start to smoke. Once it starts to smoke, then we'll be cutting a notch into it, similar to these, and then hopefully we'll get a fire going. Well, it might get a little hot doing this, so I'll take the jacket off. Right, let's do it. Well, as it's now the end of December and all the leaves are pretty much off the trees and on the ground, I might as well make use of these leaves and put them up on the roof of the shelter. So I just kicked a load of leaves away to reveal the fire pit. Perfect. So the next thing we need is lots of dry sticks. Anything that snaps is usually dry. Just gonna grab a few more. So I always find the best wood is the wood that's dead and it's just hanging or suspended in branches. Look, that's bone dry. And here's another great example. So we've got a few little bits of kindling. These are all to go onto our tinder bundle once that catches light. So we want them to be as dry and as thin as possible. So this one looks pretty dead. Feels dead. Yep. These are slightly thicker, these ones. But what we'll do is when we get back to the camp, we'll grade through what we have, separate all the thin twigs from the thicker twigs. So this is what we've got: thinner twigs and thicker twigs. Now we've got even thinner twigs. So this will be stage one. This is what we're going to put on the first flame. As soon as that bundle goes up, this is what's going on. Then we're going to work our way up from there. So I'm going to put this bit of bark down just to keep this off the ground, because we don't want the hearth soaking up any moisture from the ground. Place it there. I'm going to flip it over, and this hole is what I'm going to drill into. So I've got my bow, got my spindle, which is hazel, and I've got my limpet shells to act as a bearing block. I'm going to take my spindle, wrap it into this so it's quite tightly locked in. Now I'm just going to drill like this for maybe 15-20 seconds, just until it starts to warm up. So what we want is for the wood to start to warm up and then to char, to begin to go brown and then black and produce a dust and then smoke. So once you think it's warmed up slightly, if you just apply a bit more pressure with my left hand, so the one I'm holding the limpet shells in, I'm applying a bit more pressure, and now we can see it smoke. Now it's smoking. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to place this down very carefully like that. Now so this is a hole we've just created. Using my saw, it's a bit overkill for the job. So using my saw, I'm just going to cut a notch into this hole we've created. About there, and we'll do another one here. There. And now we just tidy it up with the knife. So this is the notch. It's roughly 1/8 the size of the hole. Right, so I'm pretty much ready to go. I've got my tinder bundle ready, and then small twigs leading up to the larger, thicker twigs. Remember, fire lighting is all in the preparation. Right. So I'm going to place this down, and as you can see, slightly out of breath, as you can hear. And there is our ember. I'm slightly out of breath, but that's the way it is with friction fire. Right, so it's now time to blow the ember into a flame. I'll just move that, grab this. There we are. I want to put these three aside, in fact, and the limpet shells. Right, so they're up on the bench. So here's our tinder bundle. It's now time to transfer the ember into this tinder bundle. So there's a nice bit there I can drop it into. So very carefully, I'm going to pick up my ember and just drop that down. There we are. So we've got our ember that we've made from the friction fire smouldering away inside this tinder nest. You can see the smoke getting thicker and thicker, darker and browner every time I blow it. Inside it's slightly damp, but it's getting hotter and hotter, and that heat is drying out those wet fibres. Once you see a small flame, just roll it and that flame should hopefully spread. If it goes out, we'll have to blow it again. So remember, this is slightly damp. So now it's burning. I'm going to place it down onto the ground. Just to keep it off the ground and keep it dry, I've placed some bark down there. So now we've got the flame, I'm going to place it down here. Just slightly spread it apart so it opens up, gives it a bit more oxygen. Then I'm going to place these over the top. This might smother the fire, but after we give it a bit more oxygen, it should go up. So we're just going to loosely place those over the top. Don't forget the woods I've used here. This is just a piece of hazel that I've had for many years. This is a spindle made from hazel again, and this here is also made of hazel. So I'm using hazel for everything for my friction fire kit. And don't forget about the trick using the limpet shells. It works really well. Why do I use it? Well, there's no friction. If I was to use a wood bearing block on the top, the spinning of the spindle would create lots of friction. It would heat up, and that's friction we don't want. We want all the friction down the bottom of the spindle. Otherwise we're wasting energy. This allows it to spin freely. this is basically just a piece of elder that I've hollowed out with a piece of metal wire. And then I've made some lime cordage. So up here on the top, I've just made a small hole in there with a drill. And yeah, lime cordage. So I've got my billy can filled with water. It's now time to hang this, or shall I say, suspend it over the fire. So I'm going to try and use a piece of vine to hang my kettle from that piece of wood, rather than carve myself a pot hanger. So this is the sort of thing we're looking for. And if I just pull it out of the tree, it seems to be pretty dead. So now I've got this out of the tree, the next test is to see if I can get it into a nice loop, like this, without it snapping. Right, this is it, this is our pot hanger. So with the pot hanger, I'm going to just work out roughly where I want my pot to hang, or the billy can, that is. So I want it to be a little bit shorter than that, maybe about there. So I'm going to try and make it as long as that. So that's where it crosses over. I'm now going to just take this vine, I'm going to wrap it through here a few times. Like this, we'll just lock that one off at the end. That's what we want. So now I'm just going to undo this one slightly. I'm going to place it over here, well, through there. Now taking my kettle, or my billy can, I'm going to thread it onto the vine. Then I'm going to wrap this vine back round itself. And as you can see there, we've got a hanging billy can. So to make it slightly lower, I'll just press it together, bring that around, maybe press it together slightly, and that's how we lower it. Real simple, no tools needed, just a piece of vine, and it's just wrapped around the end piece. All I have to do is unlock this, wrap it round, slide the kettle off, or slide the billy can off. Well, I think I've used this enough times. I don't think I can get any more life out of this. So it's only fair to say thank you to this lovely piece of wood and put it back into the fire. So this will once again help us with our flame to heat the kettle. Thank you and goodbye. I'm now looking for a piece of hazel. The hazel I'm looking for is something maybe as thick as your finger. It's just to make kebab sticks from. So we want it to be green. And this is a lovely hazel. There's loads of hazel everywhere, so I'm not really damaging it too much. I'm just taking one shoot. I'm going to cut it off here nice and clean. As you can see, nice and clean. And yeah, this is what we want. So we only want about 1 meter of it, but we'll take the whole lot anyway. So as we're waiting for the kettle to boil, it's now time to make our cooking utensils. What I mean by that is we're just using this hazel to make a skewer. We need to take all this bark off. So this is a very quick and rough way of taking the bark off. What we'll do at the end of it, once the bark's off, we'll then heat it over the flame just to sterilize it, well, as much as we can. But remember, this is hazel, so it's perfectly fine to cook with. So we've taken all the bark off. We're just going to place a little point onto the end of the stick. So we're going to try and make 2 kebab sticks out of this. I'm going to take it roughly halfway. I'm going to chop it in half. Now it's time to sterilize these over the flame. Just pushing them in and out, holding them over the flame. So you'll notice I'm only doing it very lightly. I don't want these to burn. These will go slightly charred or slightly black, but that's mainly those loose fibers on the outside that will have caught light and burnt. So I'm just going to do the base as well. Because the base is going in the ground, it's not that important. So I'll just do the top again. So the first thing I want to do is chop up this onion. Here's our sticks. Okay. So I'm carving chunks in order to thread onto these skewers. There's one more. There. And there's another. By simply threading the stick through the meat, you can then slide it down to where you want it. So we're going to do, let's do 1 pork, and then we'll do 1 onion. The trick with onions is try and drill through them, otherwise they're going to split. So we'll tuck that one down to there. We'll do another piece of pork. Another tip is to just spread them out a bit. You don't want them too close together, because if they're spread out, more air and more heat can get in between the meat, which means it'll cook quicker. Right, so that's one. Time to do the next one. So I've just added some mixed herb and some spicy paprika. Just opened up the fire to give it lots of heat. Shout out SWAZI, good gear. Check them out. Cheers. These are looking good. So the plan was to just come down today, have a quick play with a bit of friction fire, cook up some food, make a cup of tea, and just really enjoy the rest of 2018. 2019 begins in less than 48 hours time, and as I've kind of made a commitment this year, being 2018, to try and do a few more videos on YouTube, a few more uploads, some interesting things, fishing, hiking, camping, I don't know, maybe a few travel vlogs or 2. I just thought I'd say goodbye to 2018 with 1 more video. So look out for me in 2019, and hopefully I'll be doing some cool stuff. I'll be teaming up with Mike and Hayes Outdoors. We're going to go on a few expeditions. I can't say too much. I'm doing lots of projects at the moment with Mike. But yeah, I'm hoping to be sticking around, and you'll hopefully see more of me. So if you like what you see, please hit the button, the red one that says subscribe, and I'll be back. Cheers. I'm trying to distribute the heat a bit more evenly so that this meat cooks a bit quicker. So I've finished my tea, I've almost finished my snack. It's now time to put the fire out and head back. Well, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Stick around for another video sometime in 2019. Cheers. Don't forget to subscribe.